Welcome to the House of the Fawn. Yay. Okay, so today we're just going to be going through the house, and I don't know if you guys can see from your vantage point, but you can see all the way back into the back peristyle, which for those of you who didn't take art history, it's a Greek garden that a lot of the houses in Pompeii started to adopt after the 2nd century BC. So this mosaic, it's Ave in Italian, which means welcome, or in Latin, sorry, not in Italian. And so this was the entrance to the house, and this was something that everyone would see as they would come inside. And for those of you who didn't take art history, Roman houses, especially at Pompeii, were not only places where people lived, but also places of business and social gatherings, and it was like a very big presence about your family and your social standing within society. Okay, so we can go on inside. Actually, it looks like we're not going to be able to go into this entryway, so if you guys can look at the mosaics on the floor in there. So the floor mosaics are in the entryway. They're on the floor of the fosses, which is, for those of you who didn't take art history, so I'm going to be saying that a lot, is just like the walkway that goes into the entrance of the house. And it was just like a barrier almost of saying like, okay, this is the outside, you're welcoming, and then you would go in. That was the, that's original, what's on the floor now. And then past that, there used to be a mosaic, which is on your handout on page 3. This one, the one with like the scary faces, the theatrical faces. Okay, so the entrance into the atrium was once marked by this mosaic, and we'll see it this afternoon once we go into the archaeological museum. A lot of the mosaics that were originally here have been moved. Okay? Alright, we can go inside now. Okay, so can everyone hear me? Slash see me? Yeah, still a couple people. Okay, so as you guys can see, that is the fawn that the house is named after. That's not the original statue, but we'll see that as well in the Archaeological Museum this afternoon. So the house was named after this statue because we know very little about the actual inhabitants that lived here in Pompeii. Farther back in the house, there was a room when it was excavated that was found a woman with 3 young children. So that their skeletons were found when the house was excavated, meaning that the men of the house were not here at the time of the eruption of Vesuvius. So that's what the house is named after. This was once the impluvium, which for those of you who didn't take art history, it's like this used to be obviously had a roof that had a hole in it, and when rain would come through, this would catch rainwater. So they use that as as a source of water within the house, and also to keep the rain from going elsewhere in the house. So I'm just going to read you my overall thesis just for today. So the House of the Fawn, with its extensive spaces, design, and decoration, is the best example of Pompeian domestic architecture that combines the traditional parts of Roman architecture and design with the great influence of Greek culture and art. It's best known for its size and mosaics, and both of those we're going to be able to see today. So the House of the Fawn spans over 30,000 square feet, and it is the largest house in Pompeii that has been excavated to date. And as you can see, we saw the mosaics at the front and in the atrium, and coming through this way. And again, we see another mosaic in the floor of the impluvium. And another one over here. So you guys want to come over here? Amy's like, no. Okay, so this is the floor of the tablinum, which was the main place of business in the house. And this mosaic back in the day would have been much more impressive. I guess you guys can almost see that it's almost like an optical illusion. It looks very 3D. Whoa. Do you see that? Yeah. Does everyone see? That's you guys cool. Can come up here. So I guess one of the reasons why I read that they have this here is because when people were coming to the house to deal with business and all of that, it was meant to be impressive. So it was meant to say we know about other cultures. We know about Greek culture and Greek mosaics and all of that. So it was meant to send a very subliminal message to the people that were coming to do business within the House of the Fawn. The second page of your handout little. You guys have a little map of the house, and where we're standing now is in the Tuscan atrium. So that atrium is the Roman atrium, the atrium that was originally part of the house, and then it was expanded outward after that. But this was the Roman atrium, and then if you look over here, this is what's called the tetrastyle atrium, because it has the 4 columns. As you can see, they're Greek fluted Corinthian columns at the top, and so that was the Greek side versus the Roman side. And one of the biggest reasons why the House of the Fawn is so well known is because it had completely separate spaces for private and public. So here was the public atrium. So you would walk in, you would see the impluvium with the fawn, and you can see all the way back into the peristyle, which is a very Pompeian idea that you have one straight line of vision all the way into the back of the house. But then you can come over into the tetrastyle atrium, which shows the Greek leanings of the owners, and it was meant for more private family rituals, not for the public. Some very important people would be invited into that part of the house, but not typically. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. Okay, so like I was saying before, this is the tetrastyle atrium, and these columns are the original ones, and you can see that they are very different than anything that we would typically see in Rome. So they are Greek. And you can also see that if you were to be in here as well, you could go all the way straight back to the end of the house as well. So although they had 2 atriums, which was not typical of Pompeian houses, they both had access all the way to the back of the house. And so I guess another thing that was special about the House of the Fawn was its size and the fact that it had 2 atriums as well as 2 peristyles. So the peristyles, again, for those of you who aren't in art history, are just Greek fluted columns that surround a garden. And they had 2 of them in this house, so that was very, very unique. There's one smaller one and one bigger one, and if you look at your handout, the smaller one is number 10, and the bigger one's number 12. So the smaller one is the first one that you see, and then the way back is number 12. Does that make sense? And you can see both of them from the Tuscan atrium. You can see all the way through. Okay? Okay. The House of the Fawn kept most of its traditional first style wall painting. So for those of you who aren't in our art class, again, first style wall painting is just this. As you can see, it's painted to look like stone, expensive stone. So this whole room at one point was covered with this, as well as the atrium and other main rooms in the house. Later on, after the earthquake in 63 AD, a lot of the house was renovated and fixed because, as you can see, even these bricks coming through the wall here, the house was very damaged by the earthquake. So when it was damaged and they had to redo it, a lot of the rooms, the more minor rooms, were redone with 2nd and 4th style, such as the bedrooms and some of the smaller areas in the house. But all of the major areas and the public areas were kept in the 1st style, which I think just shows the owner's, commitment to Roman architecture and design, but then also bringing in the aspects of Greek mosaics and architecture as well. Okay, so over here is the mosaic that I was talking about earlier that was in the fosses, which is this is the entryway into the house. And then the other mosaic would have been on the floor here that separates the change from the entryway into the first atrium. Okay? And this is an original mosaic as well. So that's pretty cool. And again, you can see the first style wall painting on the walls to make it look like very expensive stone. Cool? Cool. Is the first peristyle, and as you can see, these circles on the ground here are where the columns originally stood. There's some bottom parts of them right here. But this entire thing was surrounded with columns just like those, the Corinthian topped ones. So this was the small garden, and then as you can see, we can still see straight back into the larger garden. Does that make sense? Okay, we're going to go back again. Okay, friends, so this, as you can see straight back into the second larger peristyle, which we'll be in a second. But this room was the exedra. I don't know how to pronounce that. But on your little map, if you take a look, it is number 11. So this is the small peristyle, and then this is the room leading into the larger peristyle. So it's a very important room just because the farther you move back in a Roman house, the more important you are. So if you're just an average businessman coming to collect something, the farthest you're going to get is that tablinum that we saw up there with the mosaic on the ground that was like an optical illusion. But the more important you are, the higher status you are, the farther you get to go back into the house. So that was just a very important room. This mosaic is on the 3rd page of your handout, and it's the Alexander mosaic. Yes, ready?
Is it the original?
No, this is not the original. We are going to see the original today in the Archaeological Museum, but this is a reconstruction of what was found when they excavated this house here in Pompeii. So the mosaic, it dates, okay, so this mosaic is a copy of a Greek painting from the 4th century BC. So this is one of my biggest arguments that this house was a very good combination of Roman style and architecture, but also bringing in Greek architecture and style and design. So essentially whoever owned this house, the owners of this house, had enough knowledge of the other provinces of the Roman Empire to be able to commission or purchase this mosaic. It's not clear whether or not it was brought here to Pompeii and put in the house, or if it was done here at Pompeii in a workshop somewhere in the area and then installed into the house. So it could have been done in Greece and then brought here, but it's not clear whether or not. But we do know that it is a copy of the Alexander painting, which depicts the Battle of Issus between Alexander the Great and Darius III of Persia. So, and you guys will see this afternoon in the Archaeological Museum. You can sort of see now, but...
Are you finished? May I see too?
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
So as you can see,
Ho aspettato con silenzio laggiù che vi spostasse un pochettino. Sì. Lo so, signore, lo so.
Okay, I can talk about it over there. Let's just go that way. Probably see on that mosaic, but you'll be able to see this afternoon better in the museum. It's just the emotion that was able to be depicted on the mosaic itself, because they use what was called tesserae, which are like extremely small pieces of rock and sand and like different pieces of glass and stuff to make it look almost exactly like the painting did. So it's pretty cool, like, to see, like, if you look it up on Google, like the painting versus the mosaic, they're almost identical, and they were able to do that with the use of these very, very small, they're what they're called tesserae. They're like little pieces of mosaic. Okay. 3rd page of your handout, there's another mosaic at the bottom, and you can see it has like the hippo and the crocodile and like the birds and stuff. So that mosaic is a scene from the Nile River, and it was in between this part of the house and the 2nd peristyle, somewhere over there, probably behind the exedra, which is where the Alexander mosaic is. And so, as you can see, that's just like another indicator that the people who own this house were very knowledgeable about the size and breadth of the Roman Empire, and they were very welcome to new ideas, new styles, learning about new things, and exhibiting that they knew about them. So, like I said earlier, a Roman house was a very big part of one's social standing, especially within Pompeii. So if they had that scene from the Nile on the ground, it showed that they knew about Egypt and all of the things that were happening within the entire empire, and that they were willing to learn about it. Does that make sense? Okay, so overall, the House of the Faun displays the best combinations of traditional parts of Roman architecture and design with the combination of Greek culture and art. As we saw today, the house combines the features of a typical Roman domus, such as the Tuscan atrium and private and public spaces, while seamlessly highlighting distinctly Hellenistic features such as the peristyle gardens and mosaics that adorn the entire house. This harmony between the influences in the House of the Faun exemplify how the two societies converged at a time when the Roman Empire was experiencing a great influx of culture from its provincial cities. The House of the Faun clearly expresses its residents' efforts to keep a great deal of Roman pride and tradition within the house, while also being able to exemplify the great strengths and beauties of their surrounding areas. Other houses in Pompeii were able to achieve this same ideal, but the House of the Faun trumps them with its all-encompassing design and style.
Yay, Molly! Bravo!